I want you to picture a time lapse in your mind for a second. Just this rapid, really vivid sequence of a single athlete's life.
Oh, I love this exercise.
Yeah, so we start with this completely gangly, uncoordinated puppy. She is sliding across your kitchen floor, just totally wiping out because she's dragging one of your socks that is, almost as big as she is.
Right, total chaos.
Exactly. But then, cut to a few weeks later, she's out in the backyard grass, and suddenly she just freezes. Her head snaps up. She has just caught her very first real scent trail on the breeze.
That instinct kicking in.
Yeah. And now, fast forward a few years, that same clumsy puppy is this mature, confident adult moving across an open golden field. I mean, she is running, pointing, retrieving, diving into the water, and checking in with her handler between every single task like it's this perfectly choreographed dance.
It's incredible to watch in real life.
It really is. And then the time lapse slows down. We see that same dog, much older now. She's moving slower. Her muzzle is completely silver. But the absolute second you pull that leash out of the closet, she still lifts her nose into the wind with that exact same intensity.
It is a beautiful image to hold on to.
Yeah.
And it really captures the core reality of what it means to share your life with a working breed. The dog remains fundamentally herself from day one all the way to year 14. She's just moving through completely different chapters of the same physiological and psychological existence.
Okay, let's unpack this, because today's deep dive is an exploration of a comprehensive lifetime roadmap for one of the most dynamic canine athletes on the planet, the German Shorthaired Pointer, or GSP.
An absolute powerhouse of a breed.
Truly. And we are pulling from an extensive mountain of expert material today. It's a massive breakdown detailing the life cycle of this specific breed. But our mission today isn't just about, how to handle a high-energy dog.
Right, that's way too surface level.
Exactly. This is about understanding how you protect the body and the mind of an elite athlete at every single stage of her life.
Which requires a completely different mindset than just having, a casual family pet. When you bring a GSP into your home, you are literally taking on the management of a high-performance system.
Yeah.
The massive energy they possess, it isn't a problem you need to solve. It is the core feature of their design. Our job is to build the infrastructure to support it safely.
And if we're going to talk about building that infrastructure, we really have to start before the dog even crosses your threshold. The very first health checklist item from the sources is it's brutal honesty.
The hardest part for most people.
It is. You have to ask yourself, does your actual day-to-day reality fit this animal? Because I think a lot of people fall in love with the Instagram aesthetic of a German Shorthaired Pointer.
Oh, absolutely. The whole rugged, outdoor, flannel-wearing lifestyle.
Exactly. But the reality is a fenced-in yard is not enough on its own.
No, not even close. A yard is just a holding pen if nothing is actually happening in it. I mean, you could theoretically make apartment life work with a GSP, but only if you have this incredibly rigid, intense structure for getting them out and engaged multiple times a day.
Right.
If you can't honestly commit to massive amounts of time, physical movement, and mental engagement, well, the structural foundation of the dog's entire life is compromised before you even begin.
So let's assume you pass that honesty check, right? You bring this puppy home. The most crucial takeaway from all this research is that a puppy is not just a smaller version of an adult athlete. She is the blueprint of one.
Yes, that distinction is everything.
I keep thinking of this building a high-performance sports car, right? Like a Ferrari in your garage. You would never take a car out to the racetrack, redline the engine, and slam on the brakes while you were still bolting the chassis together.
That is the perfect mental model. The puppy's joints, their ligaments, their growth plates, they're still forming. They are quite literally the chassis curing in the garage.
Yeah.
So if you push for early size, or, if you take a 6-month-old GSP out for a 5-mile forced run on pavement just to tire them out, you are permanently compromising the structural integrity of that vehicle.
You're doing permanent damage.
Exactly. You are inviting early arthritis and joint failure. Safe, age-appropriate growth has to matter more than early mileage. Focus on gentle water introductions, basic leash foundations, that kind of thing.
But wait, if I have a puppy bouncing off the walls of my living room, tearing up the furniture, my immediate instinct is to take them to the dog park to burn it all off. You're telling me that actually makes it worse.
It makes it infinitely worse. If we connect this to the bigger picture, early restraint is actually what creates the capacity for boundless freedom later on.
How so?
Well, think about what is happening in a puppy's central nervous system. If they are constantly overstimulated, if it's just chaotic high adrenaline play at the dog park, Every single day, their nervous system physically adapts to operate in a constant state of hyperarousal.
Oh.
Yeah, they literally forget how to settle. You're teaching the brain that chaos is the baseline.
So they basically become adrenaline junkies.
Precisely. And physiologically speaking, sleep is when the puppy's body actually repairs tissue. It's when they consolidate memory from whatever training you did that day.
Right, they need that downtime.
They desperately need it. By enforcing rest and focusing on calm, structured introductions to the world rather than just total chaos, you are wiring the dog's brain to be resilient. You are building an athlete that possesses a physical off switch.
So we have this chassis curing in the garage, and we are teaching the nervous system how to settle. The next logical question is, how do we fuel this engine? Let's transition over to nutrition and body condition.
A huge, huge topic for working breeds.
Yeah, and the overarching theme here from the sources is that a GSP's bowl should build capability, not just, fill empty space.
You are feeding for function. Look, a GSP will almost always act like they are starving to death. But you cannot feed them based on how hungry they act.
Right, they'll just eat until they pop.
Exactly. The food needs to support lean muscle development. It needs to provide steady, sustained energy rather than these rapid sugar spikes and crashes.
And this ties directly into body condition, keeping the dog lean. I was really surprised by how heavily this was emphasized. Why is feeling the ribs and monitoring the waistline such a critical, ongoing metric?
It comes down to their anatomy. A German Shorthaired Pointer is heavily muscled, and they have a very deep chest. If you add even 3 or 4 extra pounds of fat to that frame...
Which doesn't sound like a lot.
It doesn't, but on a dog, you drastically increase the mechanical wear and tear on their joints over a lifetime of running and jumping. You absolutely want them lean, but keeping them lean requires conditioning, and conditioning isn't just about mindless physical exertion.
Okay, here's where I want to push back on what might be the most common piece of dog-owning wisdom out there. The old saying goes, a tired dog is a good dog. I think a lot of people assume you just run a high-energy dog until they drop.
It is the most pervasive and honestly the most damaging myth in working dog culture. Yes, if you just run a GSP until they are physically exhausted, all you are doing is building a superior cardiovascular system. You are just creating an elite marathon runner.
Oh man, I never thought of it that way.
Right. Within a few months, that dog who used to get tired after a 3-mile run is now going to need 10 miles just to take the edge off. They can be physically exhausted, but their mind is still frustrated, anxious, and deeply unfulfilled.
That is a terrifying thought for any owner. So how do we actually fulfill them without just turning them into ultra-marathoners?
You have to engage their genetics. That means real movement, yes, but it also mandates genuine rest days for muscular recovery. And most importantly, it requires engaging their mind through their nose.
Scent work.
Exactly. Their olfactory bulb, the part of the brain that processes smell, is massive. When you let a dog meticulously decode a patch of woods through structured scent work or find it games, they're burning an enormous amount of cognitive energy.
One of the lines from the research that really stuck with me was that the GSP's nose is not a problem to silence, it's a system to guide.
It completely reframes our relationship with the dog. Processing scent tires a dog out neurologically in a way that a straight run down a paved block never ever will. You are feeding their fundamental need to work and solve problems.
Okay, so we've fueled the machine, we've conditioned the muscles, and we've engaged the mind. We now have this highly fueled, cardiovascularly superior athlete with a mind perfectly wired to hunt.
A literal heat-seeking missile.
Right. And the obvious danger here is that if you don't give this heat-seeking missile a steering wheel and some brakes, it is going to crash.
And the primary accelerator on that missile is prey drive.
The prey drive in this breed is intense. If a bird, a rabbit, a squirrel, or even a neighborhood cat crosses their path, it pulls their attention instantly. I imagine a lot of frustrated owners try to just punish that instinct out of them. Can you even train that out of a hunting dog?
No, and you really shouldn't try. You have to understand the mechanism of prey drive. It is a neurological dopamine loop that has been selectively bred into them for generations.
So it's hardwired.
Totally hardwired. The chase itself provides the brain with a massive chemical reward because the reward happens internally. The absolute second they start chasing, yelling at them, is completely ineffective. You are fighting millions of years of genetics.
So if you can't punish it out of them, what on earth do you do?
You build a competing neural pathway. You have to make coming back to you more rewarding than the chase itself.
Got it.
That is why recall coming when called is the absolute most critical skill they will ever learn. It is the bridge between freedom and risk. But you have to earn that off-leash freedom very gradually, using long lines, secure spaces, and just incredibly patient repetition.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. It's not just about those big dramatic moments out in the field, though. We also have to talk about impulse control in the house.
Yes, house manners.
Teaching a dog to sit politely at a door or not to pull on a leash, I always thought of that as just like basic etiquette, just having a polite dog so your guests aren't annoyed. But if we go back to our Ferrari analogy, we just spent all this time building an incredibly powerful engine. Basic obedience isn't a cosmetic paint job, it's the seatbelts, it's the brakes.
I love that.
Yeah.
It is absolutely the brakes. Without impulse control, all that horsepower just drives the dog right into a wall
Yeah.
or into traffic.
Right. A dog that bolts out of a front door gets hit by a car. A dog that pulls frantically on a leash near a swollen river falls in. A dog that can't control itself around small children ends up causing an injury. Teaching manners is actually a form of preventive health care.
Exactly. You are actively keeping the dog out of the emergency room. And those brakes have to be maintained throughout their entire adulthood. You don't just graduate from a 6-week puppy class and assume the brakes will never need new pads.
Which brings us to the physical toll of this outdoor lifestyle. Even with the best brakes and the best safety systems in place, running through woods and swimming in lakes damages the vehicle over time. And one of the most dangerous things about this particular athlete is that they rarely complain loudly.
Working breeds are notoriously stoic. The adrenaline of the hunt or the run actively masks their pain.
That's crazy to think about.
A German Shorthaired Pointer is not going to stop, sit down, and cry unless something is catastrophically wrong. They don't have a glaring red check engine light on their dashboard. Instead, they whisper their discomfort.
They whisper it. Through a slightly longer recovery time after a hike, maybe, or a tiny shift in their gait, or suddenly refusing dinner. But if you are a normal owner listening to this, how do you train your eye to spot the difference between a dog who's just recovering from a hard hike and one that is whispering a warning sign?
What's fascinating here is that the only way to hear a whisper is if you already know the baseline volume of the room.
Oh, that makes sense.
You have to measure the baseline constantly. If you track your dog's normal recovery, say, she usually sleeps for exactly 2 hours after a hike and then brings you a toy, and today she sleeps for 6 hours and doesn't want to move at all, that deviation screams at you.
Because you know what normal looks like.
Exactly. If you aren't paying close attention on the normal days, you will completely miss the warning signs on the bad days.
That requires treating your dog almost like a patient whose chart needs updating. It means constant physical checks. And the mechanisms behind these checks are fascinating. For example, checking their ears. Because they have floppy ears that fold over, they physically trap moisture and heat.
Which creates a perfect incubator for yeast infections, especially after a swim.
Right. Or checking between their toes. You aren't just looking for mud, you are looking for grass seeds like foxtails.
Foxtails are a nightmare for working dogs. They are shaped like little arrowheads. If they get caught between the dog's toes, they don't just sit there. They physically burrow into the skin and migrate through the dog's soft tissue.
Ugh, that sounds awful.
It causes horrific abscesses.
So keeping their nails short, checking their paw pads, running our hands over their skin to check for ticks after they run through brush, it's a daily physical inventory. But while we are on the topic of acute physical dangers, we have to talk about the absolute most terrifying risk for this specific body type, bloat.
Gastric delectation volvulus. It is the monster in the closet for any deep-chested breed owner.
Can you explain the actual mechanics of bloat? Like, why are they so susceptible to it, and what is physically happening inside the dog?
Because a GSP has a deep, narrow chest cavity, their stomach is suspended in a way that allows it room to swing. Under certain conditions, often eating a massive meal and then exercising heavily, or even just swallowing too much air, the stomach fills with gas and expands like a balloon.
Okay, so that's the dilatation part.
Yes, but the real danger is the volvulus. Because there is room in that deep chest, the gas-filled stomach swings like a pendulum and physically twists in on itself.
Twisting off the entrance and the exit?
Yes. And when it twists, it completely cuts off the blood supply to the stomach and often the spleen. Tissue begins to die almost immediately. Toxins flood the bloodstream. It is a catastrophic, life-threatening emergency.
So as an owner, bloat awareness isn't about living in a constant state of panic. It's about absolute preparedness. You need to know what the signs are before you ever see them.
You are looking for unproductive retching. They look like they need to vomit, but nothing comes up.
Yeah.
You will see a visibly swollen, drum-tight abdomen.
Yeah.
They'll show sudden, intense distress, extreme weakness, or they might just collapse entirely.
And this is not a wait-and-see situation.
Never. If you suspect bloat, you don't call a friend, you don't wait an hour, you load the dog in the car immediately.
Yeah.
You need to know exactly which emergency vet is open in your area and how to get there fast before the emergency ever happens. Minutes literally dictate survival.
And bloat isn't the only time to rush to the vet. The sources say if you see collapse, severe breathing issues, heat distress, persistent limping, or drastic behavior shifts, you make the call. And the most helpful thing you can do for your vet is to bring them that baseline data we talked about earlier, right?
Absolutely. When you can hand a veterinarian a clear timeline of when a whisper started when they stopped eating, when the limp first appeared, you drastically improve their ability to diagnose the problem.
You're giving them the full picture.
It takes the guesswork out of the diagnosis. You're giving the medical professionals a map.
But, even if you track all this data over time and you meticulously maintain the brakes and you fuel the engine perfectly, the miles still eventually catch up. Which brings us to the final chapter of this lifetime roadmap, the golden years. Senior care.
It's a tough transition, but a beautiful one.
Yeah, and there is this really beautiful philosophy in the research. It points out that senior care doesn't erase the athlete. The athlete is still in there. You just have to change the athlete's world so comfort can stay.
It is a profound emotional and practical shift. You are no longer building capacity in this animal. You are preserving their dignity. The engine might not be able to hit the red line anymore. The joints might ache. But the spirit of the dog, that intense drive to work and be with you, is identical to when they were a puppy.
So practically, this means adapting the environment, replacing those long joint-pounding runs with more intricate scent work in the grass, which we know still tires them out mentally anyway.
Right.
It means putting down rugs on slippery hardwood floors so their aging hips don't slide out from under them, adding a ramp to the back of the SUV, getting a softer orthopedic bed. You are managing their world.
And supervising them more carefully, too, around small children or rowdy younger dogs, because an older dog physically can't escape as easily, and their patience definitely wears thin.
So, what does this all mean? When I look at this entire roadmap, I just reflect on the beauty of this evolution. By giving the dog a modified version of her old life, it proves that our true role as an owner is to serve the dog's changing needs. We aren't just here to enjoy their prime when they are doing exactly what we want them to do out in the field. It's an act of lifelong service.
It is the ultimate reciprocal bond. Think about what a German Shorthaired Pointer gives to a family over 10 or 12 years. They bring perpetual motion. They bring deep laughter, intense focus, affection, and this incredible, bright, forward-moving joy that completely changes the energetic frequency of a home.
They absolutely force you to go outside and experience the world.
Exactly. And in return for all of that life they inject into your world, the human side of the contract is to provide structure. We provide the brakes. We provide absolute safety, time for physical recovery, and constant health awareness. We promise to keep them comfortable, dignified, and understood for the entire journey.
From the puppy dragging that giant sock across the kitchen floor, all the way to the silver-muzzled senior who is taking a slow, stiff walk, but still lifts her nose into the breeze to test the wind. That is the core takeaway of today's deep dive. A high-energy dog requires a lifelong, conscious commitment to structure, health awareness, and purpose.
Without a doubt.
And if you are sitting there listening to this, even if you never plan to own a German Shorthaired Pointer, understanding this level of mindful, stage-by-stage guardianship fundamentally changes how we view our relationship with any animal in our lives. It forces us to be present, proactive partners rather than just reactive owners.
It demands that we elevate our entire standard of care.
It really does. Now, before we wrap up, we do need to explicitly state, this deep dive is for educational purposes only. If you're concerned about your dog's health or notice any of those whispers we discussed, always consult your veterinarian.
And if we could leave you with one final thought to mull over, consider this. What if we applied this exact same framework to our own lives?
Oh, I really like where this is going.
Think about it. What if we prioritized our own physical and mental function over mere appearance? What if we built in genuine restorative recovery alongside our daily work instead of wearing burnout as some sort of badge of honor?
Wow.
And as we age, what if we consciously adapted our environments and found new ways to engage our minds rather than simply giving up the passions that used to drive us? If we treated ourselves with the same stage-by-stage grace, the same baseline tracking, and the same structural care that we owe these dogs, how might our own senior chapters look entirely different?